recording. Hi, we are Team CLS. My name is Lynette Solis.
I'm Shamira Henry.
And this week we will be presenting our week 4 assignments. For week 4, I had development and the evolution of human performance and performance support. So just to get started, human performance improvement, versus human performance technology. So human performance improvement focuses on providing outcomes and improvements in organizations. So it's really focused on bettering the organization and finding areas of weakness, while and just kind of identifying those improvements. And human performance technology is how organizations improve performance or outcomes. So the human performance improvement is identifying really, and technology is more the act of how you would fix those gaps in performance. So really, these both can be interchangeable, and you'll see that a lot through the presentation. So the evolution of HPI and HPT. First, we started with Thomas F. Gilbert. He was in charge, or not in charge, he came up with the behavior engineering model. And this model takes 6 characteristics and helps you create a plan or identify the 6 characteristics of performance behaviors. So we have the environment and the individual, and then the environment with data, the environment with resources, the environment and incentives, and then individual knowledge, individual capacity, and individual motives. So his idea is that performance is either affected by environmental components or aspects, or individual. So you have your basically intrinsic and extrinsic motivations. And then you have your data and knowledge, which are the information parts. You have the instrument parts, and then the motivation parts. And then while he was creating that, he had a student named Joan Harless who created wrote this book, An Ounce of Analysis, which is another extension to the HPI. And then from there was Robert F. Maker and Peter Pipe, who created Analyzing Performance Problems, or You Really Oughta Wanna. And then following that, there was Gary Rumbler and Alan Brock, who created Improving Performance, How to Manage the White Space on the Organization Chart. And then Harold Stolovic and Erica Keeps. I put this cover here for this book. It didn't really talk about this, but it was involving the training aid performance. And what they did is they helped create a more systematic approach to identifying performance improvements. And so they came up with a system which then was developed and is now widely known throughout the profession because of the International Society for Performance Improvement. So they adopted this model right here, which is kind of a systematic approach, and it has 4 sections, which is performance analysis, intervention, or performance analysis, cause analysis, intervention, and evaluation. And so what this graphic organizer does is kind of help you envision how you would go through the steps of doing human performance improvement. So first you would look at your organization and do a performance assessment. So what are your visions, your missions, your goals? And then what is the environment like? So what is the culture? How do your departments run? What are their processes? What are their workflows? What kind of employees do you have? How are your employees working? And then from there, you go to your cause analysis. So performance analysis comes up with where those but the room for improvements are. And then the cause analysis helps you identify what's causing those gaps or areas of improvement that need to happen. And then from there, you have your interventions, which is where you're developing your plan and how you're going to address all of those issues. And then you have your evaluation, which kind of has to happen throughout. And the big focus is that intervention can't happen without evaluation, because together that's what causes the solution for your issues. And so evaluation has 4 different categories. There's formative, summative, confirmative, and meta evaluation, and they all kind of work together throughout your plan. So human performance technology concepts, again, there's 4 aspects. So performance analysis identifies opportunities for growth or gaps, determines if progress has been made, and acknowledge some challenges hindering progress. The cause analysis identifies accountability, resources and tools, training, the why, capacity, and motivation. Intervention is where you decide what is going to be done to address the issues, develop a plan, set goals, and again, intervention plus the evaluation is what causes your solutions. And then evaluation is where you revisit goals, choose measurements for success, determine milestone checks, and reevaluate plan. And then we have the performance support. And so what this section really does is it focuses on performance versus training, and identifying where issues are happening in the performance realm and if training can address those issues. So it says performance support relies on performance goals, and trainings use specific standards, objectives, and activities. So here we have the purpose, the workflow, the value of learning, and the goal, and then how it compares in training and performance support. So a big thing that was mentioned is the differences between training, mentoring, and coaching. And this is actually something we're talking about at my work right now, the differences between presenting, facilitating, and training as well, which kind of goes with this. So trainers, they ask directive questions, they provide information, seek specific answers. So when you're training, you have a goal and you're trying to get your learners to that goal. And mentors, they answer direct questions, provide information sources, and seek alternative answers. So mentors are usually there to kind of guide instead of seeking out direct answers, they're there answering. And then coaching is asking open questions, enables self-discovery, dispels false feelings and beliefs. So coaching is kind of a mixture between the two, where you're seeking out answers, but you're also providing. So training versus performance issues. So employees know how to do it and employees want to do it. So it creates this 4 corners, which you have your motivation problem, means that they know how to, but they don't want to. You have your resource problem, which means they know how to and they want to, but they don't have their resources. You have your employee is in the wrong job, means that they don't know how and they don't want to. And then you have your issues for training. That means training can solve them, which means they want to, they just don't know how to. So over here, we kind of weighed out the skills, or not the skills, the aspects. So you have training, which is where you build skills and knowledge. And then you have performance, where you address processes, resources, attitude, and motivation. Because training can't fix issues in processes. It can't fix issues with resources or attitudes or motivation. The connection between AR and performance support. So augmented reality can be used to see the inside of objects, provide instructions on physical devices, as office cards to help employees learn their way around and about office procedures, give step-by-step instructions as guide maps for locations. AR is a great tool for performance support because it improves instant support to users, or provides, instant support. Why are modern professionals embracing performance support? So performance support helps learners retain the information by being a resource. Learners do not need to go back to rewatch some webinars, but rather utilize the performance support for immediate feedback. And that is all for chapters 14 and 15. Who would like to go next?
I can go next.
Okay.
It says host disabled sharing. There we go.
Okay. I always forget to click that.
All right, so I have informal learning, learning and social media. Informal learning is learning that takes place outside of a formal and structured environment. It's typically flexible and open-ended, a process in which learners are going to set their own objectives and determine for themselves what determines what successful is. And then it's initiated and controlled by the learner. It's not highly structured and includes a process of reflection and action, and occurs outside of the formal classroom setting. So this is just to show you the differences between formal learning and informal learning. So it's more focused on the learner. Interpersonal, the location can be really anywhere outside the classroom, even in the classroom, but typically the workplace, home, community, etc. The process is not structured. On consciousness, learners may not realize that they've learned something until well after the learning has occurred, and that's going to be with informal learning. And with this, it's focusing more on like impromptu real world scenarios on the job performance. So a little key differences between the two. The first one I want to look at is really the time frame. So when you're looking at formal learning, so say you want to get somebody qualified to perform a job, you have like scheduling and they need to complete training specific or linear order. And the time frame with informal learning, you allow employees to kind of dictate their own terms and access the resources on themselves at their own schedule. Some events for informal learning may be planned, and that's just like for live events or if you have like a guest speaker, but for the most part, not scheduled. As far as design for formal, you're going to create you're going towards a specific goal or objective in mind. And informal training activities are going to be more of a framework. And then for the delivery approach, it focuses pointing learners in the right direction and highlighting key takeaways. And for informal, you're kind of letting the learners kind of learn on their own, go explore resources, internet, whatever, and then come back and make their own decision. And really for the evaluation for formal learning, it involves formal assessments, which can be like computer-based testing, multiple choice exam. But for informal learning, that's going to focus more on real world application. Did this informal activity help you build certain skills that you can now perform your job better? So it's going to focus more on job rather than just formal assessments. So there's been a recent interest in informal learning, and most of this goes back to the transfer training, which research suggests that successful transfer results from a variety of informal learning opportunities. The rise of the internet contributed to this, as well as the boom in social media. Informal learning is going to be the most common form of learning seen in most countries. And according to the 70-20-10 model, informal learning is going to account for 90% of all workplace learning. Okay, so I know this is a lot, so I'm not going to go over it, but for facilitating informal learning, you're going to provide people with as much access to a variety of technology as possible. So this is like computers, your tablets, smartphones, etc. And then for media, you're going to establish or give them access to classic media or non-computerized media, which is like your printed materials, classroom, and film. And then you have core or web 1.0 technologies, which is going to be websites, online references, ebooks, and online tutorials. And then social media or web 2.0 networking is going to be sites like LinkedIn, Facebook, microblogging like Twitter, and then video sharing, YouTube, and then meeting spaces like Teams, Link, etc., WebEx. So other than technology, instructional designers can facilitate informal learning in these 9 ways. So first, you want to gain executive support, and that could be through a memo or just them letting you know that they're encouraging you to learn informal on the job. You can subscribe to external content to expand learning opportunities. So for me, I work for a pipeline company and I subscribe to like American Petroleum Institute or AOPI. They have newsletters that come out like on a weekly basis. So you want to subscribe to those, trade associations, books, webinars, and online events. You want to support people in their informal learning efforts. And with this, just see if people have questions, you can approach them and help them with their independent and study and research skills. Recognize informal learning through coaching process and then help workers identify what has been learned and what still needs to be learned. You want to support informal learning by fostering documentation efforts. So workers really need to learn from materials. So I know at work we have policies, procedures, standards, guidelines, and in other industries, there's service and customer records. So you just want to make sure that you have employees have access to information. For 6, designing informal learning materials by findability and usability. And then 7 is developing templates to publish content, fill in the blank forms that promote people when writing and producing content. So at my job, it's important to use forms so that you are consistent. So when you're developing like procedures or performance verifications, if you start with the same template, then you'll see consistency in the end. Number 8, keeping content up to date, include publication date on all your materials, and then work to kind of update those frequently or put them on a time frame. I know that at my work, we review documents annually, like our programs, and some are on a 3-year frequency. Just make sure that you have the most up-to-date information in your program and materials. And then number 9, continually promoting the availability of resources for informal learning, which means let workers constantly know that the resources and opportunities that are available to them. So this can be through newsletters, social media posts, or announcements from instructional designers. For the categories of informal learning, there's individual and there's 2 or more, which is kind of a team. And for the individual, you have case studies, developing content or documentation on their own, kind of information that helps them on their jobs, designing guided tours, providing a list of tips and tricks. I use this often and I call them quick reference guides. So I manage 2 databases at work and I create these quick reference guides that kind of give tips and tricks for employees to navigate through the system, develop tutorials to help workers develop and practice skills needed on the job, and then providing opportunities for on-the-job training to receive feedback and apply it next time they perform a task. And finally, creating performance support system, provide workers with assistance with a task while they're doing it. And for 2 or more, we have, I know in our industry, we have lunch and learn specifically for like corrosion or electricians, but that just gives like a 60 to 90-minute presentation along with lunch, like on a specific topic. Tease out insights arising from meetings about topics other than learning, debriefings to identify new insights or tips, organize seminars, conferences, webinars, set up coaching programs with guidance and tips, provide tips on providing feedback to learners, moderate community of practice, groups of people who share common interests, sometimes through social media group, and then develop and coordinate mentoring programs. Experienced workers provides ongoing job and career guidance to proteges. I'm sorry about my dog. Okay, so informal training examples for remote work teams. You have peer coaching, online events. So this is going to be virtual events that you use with like WebEx, Zoom, etc. Group roundtables. So I want to talk about group roundtables a little bit. I work for a pipeline company and we are members of IS Networld, which is a database that houses contractor health and safety information, as well as contractor information for qualification and our employee information for qualification. So with the group roundtables, ISN hosts these quarterly, and you have like 100 different pipeline companies that go to these roundtables, and ISN facilitates them. And then kind of ahead of time, maybe a week or 2, they'll ask us if we have any questions for the roundtable. And a lot of times it's going to focus on hot topic items in the industry. So what items are you being asked in audits? Are there things going on in the industry that we can maybe improve upon? So for me, I learn a lot through group roundtables, and I know that a lot of other people do as well. It's just you have that interaction with your peers and people in the same industry, probably going through the same issues that you are during audit. So for me, that's a really great resource. Then you have employee generated content. So employees research topics that interest them specifically, or if you have like a weakness, like for my weakness, I think it's not necessarily grammar, but like sentence structure or paragraph structure. So I got the Grammarly subscription, and I try to focus on improving my grammar because it's not very good. And then online troubleshooting allows employees to talk through solutions and come up with, I found a typo, come up with solutions. I do this a lot. So I have teams, and a lot of people will try to find their employees' qualification report in ISM, but they don't know how, or the system is so complex and it changes so often. I've been using it for 15 years, but if you're not in there like every week, you're going to forget the steps. So what I'll do is I'll initiate a team session and do a troubleshooting and give them access to reports. And then ISN has this really cool functionality where you can save the tab that you're on as a favorite. So the next time that you log in, you don't have to go to the steps. You just go straight to your favorites and it's going to be saved there. So I would say probably online troubleshooting is something I've not done before, but now I got teams. So within the last year, we're doing a lot of online troubleshooting, and I like it. So benefits of this training experiences are going to be improved team collaboration. So you have that, not the structure dynamic, but like the free exchange of ideas, informal resources to point you in the right direction. You facilitate knowledge, share collaboration with peers, and share expertise. It's more like a free form structure that we talked about. Reduced L&D cost, and this is going to be cost effective. And the reason for this is that when you're performing tasks like in a work environment, you're going to remember 50% of what you do compared to like 5% of what you hear or 10% of what you read. So that leads to reduced L&D costs there, and then boost employee engagement because you're kind of letting them pave their own way and they play an active role in what they are learning. Okay, so designing informal learning environments, again, it's all about like allowing learners to have a choice in what they're learning, but you can provide several options for them getting to like a goal. And you could submit, so they could submit a proposal or topic of interest to them. Let's see. There's talk about design for collaboration, idea sharing, and peer interaction. Leverage the benefits of constructivism, I can't say that word, and project-based learning. So learners become active participants in the experience and they learn organically as they work through challenges. And then the benefits of gamification and play competition. Sorry. The key criteria is effective gamified designs are exploration, immersion, socialization, and competition. So it's important they have several paths that they can get to a solution. It's just not like one way to get there. Okay, so briefly, there's some screens on social media. So social media refers to, I don't know, this always gets in my way. Where do you guys put this? Social media refers to meaning interactions among people in which they create, share, and exchange information and ideas in a virtual community and network. And the simplified social learning definition is when humans learn better when they learn together. So just some statistics on social media that we're going to look at. So about half the world uses social media. There's approximately 4.8 billion internet users. More than 2/3 of the world's population have access to mobile devices, which contributes to 5.29 billion unique mobile users. And the average daily use is 2 hours and 27 minutes. And mine is a lot higher than that, unfortunately. So these are the 10 most popular social networks based on the number of monthly active users. Facebook is number 1. I'm familiar with 1 through 5, but not 6, 8, 9, or 10. I think those are overseas apps. So the role of social media as a learning tool, it's an open forum that encourages you to accelerate the development of critical thinking, communication. It's promoted in self-directed learning, which prepares and students to search for decisions independently and on their own. It allows freedom to connect and collaborate beyond the classroom. Students anywhere can start to experience the global connected world before they enter the workforce. And then social media shares and presents information in a way that makes sense and excites students more than traditional methods do. And then sharing posts promotes deeper engagement and performance for all students. Okay, so these are just types of social media learning tools. So YouTube is used to create both course and learner presentations. I use LinkedIn not just for like social networking, but also for training. I know Dr. Squires had linked some how to use Articulate and different programs in LinkedIn. So there's some good tutorials there. Project management apps like Asana and Monday.com. I actually just did the free trial to Monday.com, and that helps you keep tabs. For me, it's task management because I have so many things that I need to do on a daily basis. I just use this to kind of prioritize what my goals should be for that day. It lets you put like what the start date is, what the end date is, and then the order of kind of you want to have those tasks. So if you need help with project management or like tasks, I suggest that you look at Monday.com. Google Docs and other collaborative document tools to store and define data, and then Twitter and hashtags to encourage open forum and debate, blogs with comment functionality to share and discuss information, and then Skype's other video tools to engage more deeply with materials and each other. Okay, so I think I talked about the ROI already, but social media helps by building community, improve information retention, and that your ROI is about 50% of what is covered through discussion and interaction, which is a lot more than the 10% and 5%, which is learned by like hearing and by reading. Facilitating real-time discussion across boundaries. This allows you to maintain an A team and boost employee retention, because what you're doing is you're focusing on development and the social well-being, which helps create a positive working environment. You identify and address any knowledge gaps. When people learn together, they're going to cover more ground than they would individually. So employees can pass on knowledge to other employees in a way that they'll remember it. And it fosters a strong company culture. Bringing more people together and creating connections does wonders for morale. Okay, let's see. So how to adopt social learning in the workplace. You create opportunities for teamwork across the board. You don't want to make employees be fearful of asking for help, so they should want to ask for help. Make teamwork essential part of e-learning. You want to kind of bake it into the elements. So messaging during Zoom, comments on videos, personalized avatars, etc. Know your knowledge tools, create avenues of conversation. I did talk about Asana or Monday.com, but that's a great space for conversation. And then adopt continuous feedback performance management. Okay, so how do we make ID more exciting? So you want to meet your learners where they're going to spend time. So it's more than 70% of Americans currently use social media. So this would be a great platform. So TikTok uses like small bite-sized video to kind of engage learners. So this can make ID more exciting. You want to think outside the box, find inspiration looking outside of your specific industry, think beyond typical learning that can help infuse excitement. Communicate. So talk to people about what they did and didn't like about the training. You want to obviously focus on what the majority of the people want, but also try to incorporate the minority. And then make it interactive. So add polls, quizzes, breakout rooms. This will help turn your passive learners into active participants. Let's see. Okay, and that's all I had.
I really liked how you talked about teams, because in my assignment last week, we actually brought that up because in our courses, we use a lot of Google, and I mentioned that in the business world, we actually use a lot of Microsoft in Teams and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we use Microsoft a lot too.
Yeah, we just rolled over to 365 and use Teams, so it's been interesting.
Today I'm going to present instructional design in various settings. I'm going to start off with instructional design in business and industry, then performance instruction and technology in healthcare education, and integrating technology into K through 12 education. So in business and industry, instructional designers have various roles in corporate. So one role is a sole designer. A sole designer provides content to develop instructional materials. It's important that they have the characteristics of thinking critically, being flexible, and ask questions that can gather more information of how to form a product that's going to solve the goal of the company. The team member or leader, it varies based off of the project. So there may be several instructional designers, or there may just be one and other teammates on the team. There are 3 different types of teams. There's a virtual team, a cross-functional team, and a contract-led team. So a virtual team works typically online over Zoom or another platform, and they can have people work from different parts of the world. Somebody can be working in Japan or Ireland in America or the UK, and they all come together to meet as a team. That's typically what we've been seeing recently. They do have challenges in terms of making sure everybody meets at the correct time because they live in different time zones. A cross-functional team is a team that meets both face-to-face and virtually. So they have different times that they meet and they communicate and collaborate together. A contractor-led team is a team where there's a contractor who has an intended goal and gives that explicit goal to the team, and they lead the team. In the instructional design team members, these are examples of some stakeholders: project manager, script writer, instructional designer, text editor, graphic artist, evaluator, end users, translator, subject matter expert, video, audio production, multimedia, or computer program. Sometimes companies hire an external designer or consultant, and they're hired to create a product or lead a project. So when they come into the company, the first thing that they do is they observe what's going on and identify the training issue. Once they identify the training issue, they develop a solution that can address it. Roles of other players in the corporate would be the client, subject matter expert, and end user. There may be more than one client, so the instructional designer needs to first make sure they understand who the client is. It could be a corporate employee that hired them, stakeholders, or end users. And sometimes it can be all. A subject matter expert is a person who's an expert on content, end users, organizational content, or delivery system. So the subject matter expert, it doesn't have to just be one person. It could be 4 different people for each of these areas. The end user, these are the individuals who are going to utilize the product or intervention that's created by the instructional designer. This can be the corporate employees, managers, and leaders. The key to success for an instructional designer is to ensure that they share ideas, they listen, and they negotiate with all members of the team to ensure that they meet the objective for creating the product. Constraints in instructional design in business and industry. Brian Lawson's model is used to support instructional designers to identify, embrace constraints and solve problems while designing. So when I was reading, I was really kind of lost about how would you embrace constraints, but his layout for his model, it makes sense. So for the first dimension, you have to ask yourself who generate the constraints and what are the constraints. So if the constraints are generated by the employer, you have to analyze and get more information about why are there these type of constraints. Then you have to learn what the constraints are. In dimension 2 are the constraints internal to the design, such as the content delivery options or multiple end users. Are the constraints within the context of the design problem, such as the perceived value to the organization, motivation of end users, perceived necessity of instructional intervention. So within this dimension, the instructional designer and the team has to come together to determine how do these constraints apply to what they're going to create and how do they ensure that they deliver within these constraints. So this is where they typically begin to embrace those constraints. In dimension 3, the instructional designer has to answer the question, what type of material for design, function, and practical application are available? Who has the decision-making control? So here is when the instructional designer has to first find out what materials they have and typically where's the funding coming from. Are they in control of their funding, or is there already been a set funding budget before they joined the team? So there's different types of budgets. There could be a fixed budget that determines how many and which projects can be completed within a certain time, or there could be a chargeback budget where they have typically a limited source and they can max out that source based upon what they need. Trends and issues in corporate design and development. When designing for cross-culture, it is vital to identify societal culture and learner culture factors. So some societal culture factors are ideals, values, symbols, rules for learning, colors, interpretation, comprehension, and methods of solutions. So it's really important that an instructional designer knows who the end users are, because when you create a program or a product, you don't want to offend the end user because you use a symbol that is normal in your culture, but it may not be interpreted the same way by a different culture. Learner culture factors are instructor role, expectation, the concept of time, authentic activities, interpersonal relationship, communication style, and transfer environment. So the instructional designer has to ensure that the activities that they create are personalized to their end users, and they build a relationship with their end users before they even begin creating the product. Performance instruction in technology in healthcare. So the attributes of health science education are risk, altruism and communication, sensory perception, science, and innovation. For risk, everybody who participates within the healthcare is at risk. That's patients, health practitioners, and students. They're at risk because if a health practitioner decides to draw blood but doesn't put on their gloves and they have blood that comes onto them, they put themselves at risk of contracting a disease. Altruism and communication, the Hippocratic Oath, professional guidelines, and government agencies, they all set the standards for the code of conduct. Therefore, everybody has to always stay up to date, and they also have to shape whatever healthcare or medicine, it has to go by the conduct that's provided with these agencies. Sensory perception, that's when individuals make observations and they have to make explanation for those observations. So it's really important for health students to actually have exposure to real live one-on-one patients. That way they're able to feel and able to practice the skills that they learn. Science is the collaboration of scientific findings and evidence. So this is when health practitioners and students come together to collaborate based on their findings, innovations. It was doctors and scientists who actually used technology to create databases that help manage patients' medical records, and also they use the databases to connect to other databases that will link them together and help them to determine if maybe they prescribe medication that actually has an interaction with a different medication. Also, healthcare professionals design education simulations, which help students learn different skills that they need for the field. So medicine and other health professions use problem-based learning. And to use all those aspects, they use simulation, which exposes students to a range of cases during medical school. There are 3 different types of simulations. One is the case-based problem-solving simulation. This is where they use examinations and they formulate diagnosis based on whatever the case is. And with these cases, it can be a virtual case or it can be a real live human case. Mannequins and physical devices are used to teach physical procedures and problem solving. So here I have an image of a mannequin, and what they had to do for this is they had to actually assemble this mannequin and prep it for surgery. Trained standardized patients allow students to apply skills with mechanical devices, also build interpersonal and communication skills. So for example, this student here is taking patient from a blood. This is really good because they get the real life exposure, not only to practice their skills, but also to be able to learn how to communicate, because there are typical times when you have a patient who's scared and you have to know how to calm that patient down, as well as what happens if a patient cracks a joke. You still have to be able to hold their arm steady as you insert the needle to draw blood. The second most popular form is multimedia, provides materials students need to be good problem solvers and practitioners. So there are 3 different types of multimedias that are used. 3D images, they can give an anatomy of the body and biomedical objects. Radiological images such as MRI, CTs, and sonograms, and then videos of patients. They have videos of patients talking, breathing, moving, and walking. So I found this to be really interesting because I never took the time to think that how much you actually able to learn just by watching the way a person is moving. And a lot of occupational therapists use those type of videos to help with learning the skills. Next is integrating technology into K through 12 education. Models of technology integration. So the SAM-R model was created where each level represents a more effective means for integrating technology into instruction. The S is substitution. This is where technology acts as a direct tool substitute without no functional change. So for example, a cup of coffee. Augmentation is when the technology acts as a direct tool substitute with functional improvement. So instead of having a cup of coffee, now you added something that made your coffee become a latte. Modification, technology allows a significant task to be redesigned. So now instead of you having a latte, you now have a caramel macchiato. Redefinition, technology allows for creation of new tasks previously inconceivable. So now you found other ingredients and now you created pumpkin spice. The Tpec model is used to articulate and improve teachers' use of technology for learning and teaching. So with the Tpec model, what they did, they took 3 circles and they put them together to come up with 7 concepts. So the first 3 main concepts are the pedagogical knowledge, content knowledge, technological knowledge. Then They're merged together. So you have technological content knowledge, pedagogical content knowledge, technological pedagogical knowledge. And then in the middle, you have Tpec. So what happens is based off of whatever area a teacher specializes in. So say, for example, I'm really good with technological knowledge. That means I'll have a deficit in these other areas. I will focus on these other areas to build myself up, because the goal is to ensure that each teacher is able to reach the center, which is Tpec. Enhancing instruction with technology. So there's different type of instruction that we are able to use with technology. So one is inquiry-based learning, which are project-based learning, and problem-based learning as well. So this is when you allow students actually to create a question. You just give them a topic and you allow them to create a question based on inquiry, and they have to find their evidence and do their own research to come up with the solution and be able to publish their solution to their class. Next is personalized learning. This was something new for me. It kind of reminded me of the Montessori learning, where students use their own strategies to learn at their own pace. Game-based learning is digital games that are just used for drill and practice to help the students stay fluent in whatever skill they're practicing, such as addition or multiplication. Online learning in K through 12, it has really grown within the last few years. And the most important thing is to know that a lot of the online learning courses that weren't available in the past, they have now become available, and it gives students who fail courses the opportunity to go back and retake those courses. Flipped learning. Flipped learning, I've heard of it, but I wasn't exactly sure of how it worked in the classroom. And I see the benefits, and I also see a lot of challenges with it. For flipped learning, students view a pre-recorded video for homework, and then when they return to school the next day, they work on assignments and classes that relate to that video. I found that I agree that one of the most challenging aspects of this whole instruction is the fact that there are a lot of students who don't have access to the internet, or even don't have the technological device to be able to view the pre-recorded video. As well as, I wondered, how does that work with kids who learn at a fast pace and those who are a little bit slower? I can see that students who learn a little bit slower will actually have the opportunity to go back and rewind and press pause. But my question is, how do you keep up with students who are learning at a fast pace for flipped learning? The maker movement is almost like our 21st century of learning that's taking place in education. So it's using computer programming, electronics, 3D printers, robotics, and other technology to create products. And that's what we're currently living in and seeing that students are able to do. Current technology resources in K through 12 settings. So we have mobile devices of cell phones and tablets. A great benefit from these is that they give teachers and students quick feedback. So it's right then, right there. The students don't have to wait for feedback. Digital textbooks is becoming really popular, and there are a lot of functionalities that they give students, such as annotations. They're able to go take notes and actually have like a digital sticky note and are able to refer back to it. They have a glossary, and the glossaries are audio, so it reads back to them, and it helps kids, especially English language learners, for pronunciations and meaning of the words. Then they have search functions with digital textbooks. So if a student, for example, wanted to look up something about matter, they can just type in matter and it will take them to all the places where matter is available in that textbook. Also, it decreases cost of having to buy hard copy textbooks. Another tool is Web 2.0 tools. So they have media sharing sites like Flickr, Instagram, YouTube, social networking such as Facebook and LinkedIn. This has really helped revolutionize how students are able to use these different tools into learning things at school. The last one is open educational resources. So the open educational resources it's a public platform that has teaching and learning materials on a public domain where teachers don't have to worry about copyright because all those materials there are available and free for teachers to use during instruction. And so I'll put my reflective journal here and my references.
All right, great job, guys. I'm going to go ahead and end this session so we can do the celebrate and elevate. Okay.